you are like the fastest moving federal organization in the history of the government.
Highlighting your retirement journey and sharing your transition story.
Hopefully the noise in the background is not too bad. You guys hearing any feedback or loud craziness?
No.
All good.
Thank you. Thank you, microphone, for being the best microphone ever. All right. Welcome, everybody, once again to Retire.Army. I am happy to have my co-host Victor with me today, and we are sitting down with Justin Murphy. We haven't talked to Justin for quite some time, and he's back with us to give us some updates on what's been going on in his life, give us some updates on his retirement process as it sits right now. I think we're probably about 4 or 5 months out, maybe. And yeah, we're just going to jump right into it. So welcome back to the show, Justin, and good to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It was a nice surprise to get the message from you. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right. John's still out there. So yeah, happy to do it. I've learned, I've probably learned a lot since we last talked, or at least I've got new developments and things like that. So yeah, happy to join, happy to share, happy to help other people out.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. And just to preface it, like you and Victor go back a little ways as well, being both from the legal side of the house. So that's a really cool thing as well.
Yep, that's part of the connection piece, right? We know the same people, so that's how we you network. So tip, go out and meet people and network. If you're getting that right.
It's a small world.
So it definitely works for you.
Yeah, we don't call it the Warrant Officer Mafia for nothing.
Oh no way.
I forgot what the demographic is. I don't even, for the Army, I don't know. It's some super small percentage. It's more.
Yeah, it's like maybe 1 or 2%.
Yeah, it's like nothing. It's hardly anything. So even in my branch, it's even smaller. So yeah, it's.
Yeah, I was just telling John too. It was when being the Marine Corps side, going to the Army side for these classes, we're even smaller. We got 22 folks that show up, if that. And then I look across the room and there's like hundreds of Army folks. So you guys definitely dwarf us when it comes to numbers, but it's the Marine Corps, right? So we're always a little bit smaller than any other branch.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's jump back into it, like where we left off. I think you had done a few reps with your mentor from ACP, and is that still going on? Are you still hanging out with him?
Yeah, we're still in contact, but I mean, we're kind of, I don't want to say we're in a holding pattern, but like it's just kind of repetition, kind of get into it. So I think, he's kind of just been someone I kind of just bounce ideas off of, right? And so I can't remember when I started actually applying for employment. It was probably back in this like late spring, early summer. So since then, I've had, I don't know how many job interviews I've had, probably over half a dozen. I've literally applied for hundreds of jobs. And so, I've had interviews, I've bounced ideas off him just, after they went, some went well, some were kind of weird. And so he's just kind of just been an advisor, either, to kind of confirm kind of my intuition or, just, give me some outside perspective. So I still talk to him, like, but it's mostly just text messages. We haven't had any meetings or anything like that. So, but yeah, still in the program. I think technically you get like a year, so it'll probably till early next year sometime. I think February, March, something like that.
And Justin, real quick, just for anybody who's listening who might not know, what exactly is the ACP?
Yeah, so they're, I'm not sure if they're a nonprofit, but basically what they'll do is they will kind of facilitate a mentor and a mentee, someone trying to transition out of the military, kind of look at the job field they're pursuing, and then try to match them with their inventory of kind of volunteers, someone that can, be well suited to help mentor and get that their mentee kind of placement out in the field. So
okay,
that's kind of what they do. So it's another free resource. It's great. I don't think you can have enough resources. And again, networking is always great. Just to meet people, kind of leverage their personal experience, their network, their contacts, to help you kind of pursue your own goals.
And how much time do you have left in the Army before you retire?
So, yeah, another recent development because I finally got all my leave forms in and approved. So I will start my transition leave just after Christmas. So it's like the 28th of December. So you can, get a better time to try to go out process when people are out on leave. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, on paper, it's supposed to, I'm supposed to start the 20th of December. So just technically
that's a good
over
time
a
frame.
month.
That's a
Yeah,
good
no,
time
I mean,
frame because I recall that when I was starting to apply for jobs, it was like almost a year out, a year before I actually decided to like retire. And a lot of these folks were like, yeah, if only you would have been available like the next month, we would have talked. But I think I just started applying too early. And I thought the earlier the better, right? Just to get my name out there. But I think you're at the right moment right now where, like, just about a month out, maybe 2 months out is a good time to start looking. Because a
yeah.
year out was not working for me at all, man.
Well, so here's the thing, though, and I've noticed it's you just got to be flexible. Every organization is different. They'll have their internal hiring processes, and I've done it as a hiring manager, and so
Yeah.
I've had people same thing, right? Oh, we really need someone in the next month. I got a job offer, and they wanted me to start in like 2 weeks back in October, and I'm like, you are like the fastest moving federal organization in the history of the government. And then I've had ones where I've literally applied and I heard back from them for an interview like 3 months after I applied. So there's like a
Yeah.
vast array of how different people, and because you don't know their internal structure and how defunct or how organized they are, or what
Right.
kind of encumbrances or limitations they have on their processes. So you gotta be flexible. And I mean, the two biggest things I've learned is, just being consistent and just a lot of volume, really, because you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of just, you don't even hear back. Right. And so
Oh
I
yeah,
wouldn't
that happened.
apply for that one job and just think about it nonstop. I mean, it's volume and then it's just consistency. So just spamming out applications nonstop whenever I can. That's kind of what it's been.
And you've been volunteering for strictly government jobs, or you've been volunteering for contractor stuff too, or what?
No, so I only had one interview with a non-government organization. This is like in Memphis. It was like a private firm out in Memphis. I've had some interviews with non-federal entities. I think a couple counties. So like one was like Maricopa County, one was like Fulton County down in outside Atlanta. Majority have been federal. I mean, that's honestly, it's just kind of the pipeline I've been going. Most of my hits have been coming from Department of Justice, to be quite honest. So one thing I have kind of learned in this process is that, like, if you're not willing to take, several steps back and kind of start at the bottom in a new career field, you're kind of typecast. If you want that kind of level of compensation and responsibility. So most of my interviews have come for the Department of Justice, for the administrative officer role. So I'm not sure if anybody knows about a DOJ, but the U.S. Attorney's Office is like 94 in the country that, they chop up each state. And so each of those offices has an administrative officer, which is essentially mirrors what, my career field has done. So, so that's where most of the interest I've gotten. Like I said, I've gotten some outliers for, different superior courts at Maricopa, Fulton. I'm trying to think what else. I just had an interview with CID down at Hunter Army Airfield down in Savannah. So, it's kind of a mix, but I would say the majority of the roles and responsibilities are like 80-90% of the stuff I've done, just because that's kind of the tier of job I'm looking for. I'm not really looking to make a significant dip in my compensation. That's just not something I'm willing to do. Because A, I think I'm worth it, and B, I don't feel like starting at the bottom again. Yeah, so I've kind of come to the realization I am kind of typecast at this point. And so it's just a trade-off. It's just like life. Everything's a trade-off. Right. And so it's like, well, if you want that higher level of compensation and responsibilities, you're kind of have to do a lot of the things that you've already done up to this point. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Not like I'm not applying for other things, or more broad kind of operations program manager type roles, but the interviews I'm getting they're like all legal type organizations, right? Courthouses, law firms, Department of Justice, CID, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. But like I said, I just had another interview think it was last week. I've got another interview lined up next Friday. Department of Justice, I think like Eastern District of Pennsylvania or something. So Department of Justice up in Philadelphia. So, that's where most of my hits are coming. But, just volume and consistency, and we'll just, we'll see what pops. That's what it is. It's kind of a wait and see game. So
are you open to moving around the country a little bit, or are some of these remote jobs?
So I mean, really, I have applied for just about everywhere, minus some like very, I guess, desolate areas, right? So I'm not like applying for like position like Wyoming or like North Dakota, but like I would say any metropolitan. Yeah, exactly. Like any major metropolitan area, I probably applied or I'm open to apply. So
okay,
maybe like the Midwest areas I haven't, but outside of that, yeah, everywhere. Which I mean, I wouldn't be ecstatic to moving because that's just another like stressor that you have to deal with, another issue you have to deal with right now. Okay, now we got to pack up the house and move the family, and then I got to turn this property into another rental, and so it's just more components you're adding to your plate. So it's not. I mean, not like I wouldn't love to move and go someplace and start a new opportunity, new scenery, and everything. It's just the logistics involved with that would just, again, like I said, be another constraint, more stack of problems you got to deal with. So it just depends. I mean, it would be lovely to get a position here. I mean, I guess you aspire for everything, right? Right organization, right position, right compensation. You don't have to move. Like that would be the dream, right? But it might not be there, or it might not be there right now. So you just kind of roll with the punches, kind of make a calculated decision and kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I found that.
As far as the
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Victor.
No, I found that a lot of these companies are now open to hiring, right? At least I work on the Navy side. The GS 14s always come into the office. Hey, look, there's an opening for here. There's an opening for this. Do you know anybody? You get a referral bonus, this and that. Now, mind you, I'm in Southern California, and not everybody wants to move to San Diego. It's a high-priced area, so we're even looking at probably expanding our horizons and going somewhere else. But for the time being, we're here because my wife and I both have decent jobs here. But right now, I'm finding that there are a lot of opportunities out there, especially with like contracting or even like the GS side. Now, I know that you're getting out in December, and you're kind of exploring some kind of GS positions. Are they the ones that at least you're applying to? Are they open to doing the whole waiver thing for you? Because I know there's like a 6-month wait period or cooling off period.
Yeah, so I think and we haven't talked. I mean, first initial interview, because some are different, right? Some want like multiple rounds of interviews. Some is just like a one interview and offer and no offer. So I haven't got into that. I would say the only, I think, DoD entity I did was the one last week. All the rest have been, federal entity that's not DoD, where the waiver doesn't, that's not a thing.
Right.
So I haven't delved into that yet.
Yeah, and as far as I really want to touch on this kind of to bring it to light. I don't know if you've run across organizations that are a little bit more expedient and a little bit more well prepared when it comes to that hiring process. In my personal experience so far, it's been the DLA. Like they are on it to the T. Like they get back in touch with you immediately after the closing. They schedule the interview. They get back in touch with you like a week or two later. Like it's literally a couple-week process. Have you experienced any of those organizations out there?
Yeah, so I actually interviewed with DLA for their OGC position. I didn't get it. I got an interview, but I didn't get it. So they were fast. DC Superior Court's pretty fast. So they're federally funded, but obviously it's District of Columbia, so they're their own entity. So they're really fast, maybe because they're not technically in the federal government, although they're funded by the federal government. So they moved really fast. But the most, it's, pretty typical. You apply, it closes. I don't know how many interviews they got, but, it might be a month or longer because they got to screen all those interviews. They got to put together a panel. They got to look at everyone's schedule. you got to grade or rate all the resumes and, pick your top 5 or 10 or whatever. And then, so it could be a month or longer before, you even get an interview. Or sometimes you didn't get an interview. So it just hangs there and then you get the auto notification. You weren't selected for this position. So, honestly, I forget that 99% of the jobs, I forget that I even apply just because I just do so many. Like I'm not getting fixated on any.
There's also a massive gap.
Yeah.
It is a heartbreaker sometimes when I apply on LinkedIn and I see a job that comes up and I'm like, just posted like a day ago and there's like 1,000 applicants and I'm like, God, they're never going to look at my application, right? They're never going to look at my
funny
resume.
thing with LinkedIn, so when you see that though, that's just who've clicked the little apply link. That doesn't, you don't know if they actually, you just selected the hyperlink. That's all all LinkedIn's tracking. So you can even do a test yourself, right? Yeah. So that just means 1,000 people click the hyperlink. You don't know if because the other thing, I hate what is it? Like, I don't know what you would call them. Like the application platforms that are like Workday and all these things where you have to go and you basically have to create a brand new profile for every, like that's time consuming. I don't got time for that. I don't got time to spend 30, 45 minutes building up a new profile, upload my resume, but then I still got to put everything in the little drop down box. It's like, I don't got time for that because, there's probably a 95% chance I'm not even going to hear about this position. It's like, why am I going to waste my time on it?
That's right.
I mean, you could, but like, I just feel like that's a lot. I mean, you're going to get fatigue after a while. So like, that's a lot of expended energy, especially if you're like, it's like what do they call it? Like a blind application, right? Like you don't have a referral. You don't know anybody that's working at the company that referred you to the job. This is like a blind application. Like I'm not spending 30 minutes on that.
Yeah.
At all. That's because I'm not. But the vast majority of the time, I'm not even going to hear about that. So I'm not going to spend my time on it.
Yeah. Half the time I upload my resume, then I have to put all the other job experience and the other boxes that they provide. And it's time consuming. It's like, I don't want to go through all that myself. So
no,
I got it. And
not at all.
A lot of your jobs are they through USA Jobs that you're applying through?
So USA Jobs, another good one is governmentjobs.com. So that's like where I get most like the counties and stuff, and they'll like save your profile. So you don't have to go through that whole hassle again. So it's similar, right? You got to do a little more legwork, but it's about the same. I'll do like the LinkedIn, like quick applies, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, right? Look at my resume, see if you're interested and you think I'm qualified, and then we can schedule an interview. Like I'm not, so it's like the quick applies. They basically just look at your resume or not.
No.
I think that might have been how I got an interview at that firm. I can't recall though, but I think it was like that. So, I'm just looking for kind of ease of access. I'm not trying to give the perception like I'm lazy, but it's a numbers game. And like my time's valuable too, just like everybody else's. And the bad thing about Workday is Workday will make you fill out they'll make you have a new account, even if you have a Workday account. For each each organization, you'll need like a new profile, and you have to and like that's just not efficient at all. So it's like it's not worth it. Just not worth it to me. So I would say USA Jobs and then governmentjobs.com and then like LinkedIn, like Easy Apply are probably the 3 places I do most of my applications. I don't know if I applied anywhere through Indeed yet. I kind of just use them as like a feed. I don't know that was just recently, probably within the last month. So. I don't know if I've applied directly for anything through Indeed yet.
And I want to touch on something real quick. On you mentioned you don't want to have a big dip in your salary, right? And that's huge. I think a lot of folks just take whatever comes their way, like the first thing, because it does kind of feel like once you get out that there's not a lot for you out there because you're constantly applying. You feel like you're getting beat up because you don't get the responses that you want, right? And I think a lot of it is knowing your worth, right? I didn't want to take like a GS5 position or something like that if I know that I've been doing, Chief Warrant Officer 3 work for, 20 years, or I know how to manage a law office for effectively. So a lot of it is knowing your worth, right? You don't want to take a hit on your salary. It's hard to wait around for the right thing, but you have to remain in there and keep applying and find the right positions. And I recently talked to somebody about it and they're like, hey, look, what do you think I'm worth if I'm showing you my resume? And do you think I'm worth a 6-figure salary? I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, who do you know in that company? Your network speaks volumes about that. You know, what you held as a position, what kind of qualifications and certifications you have. You know, you got to have some kind of a resume to submit. And if you're looking for that type of position, I think a lot of folks just expect, you know, I want to walk into a 6-figure position, but I don't really do the legwork for that. You got to go out and apply. I mean, I think you're doing the right thing when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I would say, especially when you're first starting out, like you don't know like what jobs are you going to get hits on. So I guess you did kind of, you know, I kind of got some validation when I was getting responses back for the level of position. So I've only applied for 14 and 15 positions. I might have applied for like 2, maybe 3 13 positions just because the area was really nice. One was in Colorado. My wife really wants to move back there. But it's all been 14 and 15s. I've gotten interviews for 14 positions. My interview next week is for a 15 position. So like, there's interest in me. I mean, I got an offer for a 14 position, and I couldn't accept it because they need me to start in October, and I'm still on active duty. So that was kind of validating. Okay, I do have the skills. I do have the position to get, I do get interest. And so kind of like talking to my mentor, you kind of validated like, yeah, you probably don't need to like lower, the salary grade you're looking for because you're getting enough interest, right, from people in that. So you're not, overshooting, I guess, right? But it is, I mean, obviously when you get to the higher level positions, probably more, I don't know if there's more competition, maybe there's less positions, right? So maybe it's harder to stand out at that level of compensation. But yeah, I'd say you just got to kind of feel it out. But I mean, you do have to kind of know your worth. And I hate saying things like, oh, I know I deserve this, but like, I think I'm a pretty valuable individual. Like I'm very multifaceted, not even just in this career field, but just like in general. Like I think I'm, a fairly exceptional person compared to most. I like to learn things. I can do a lot. I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of assets. So
what do you think sets you apart from like what do you think is getting you in the door for those interviews at the 14 and 15 level? What sets you apart?
Honestly, I think it's just, I think a lot of it is probably just the experience, right? But it's also, I think obviously I have a lot of people that have looked at my resumes, but right, you're trying to highlight not just the level of responsibility, but also your accomplishments, right? So you're looking at, things you've completed, things you've accomplished, the kind of the breadth of responsibility. So I think that's it. So I think, the interviews I have gotten, it's been very well aligned with, what's needed for that position, right? So you're kind of thinking like big picture projects, right? Big picture budgets, big staffs, right? So I think it's that. So I mean, just me personally, I think just kind of looking at my versatility, right?
Good.
Just kind of things I took on my plate, especially like the last probably 3 years or so. So I think that maybe makes me stand out. But to be honest, I think it's probably just how well aligned your experience and your skill set is to that individual position.
You've also taken on a whole bunch of stuff outside of this. I mean, not outside of the scope of your work, but you've taken on a bunch of like the career project that you did over the summer and things like that. Like that's a lot of extracurricular stuff that most people don't do. And so just stacking your resume with things like that, where that just sets you apart from everybody else, because you boil it down to like who's got the degree, who's got the time and grade and their rank and position, who's got all that stuff, and then you do all that extra stuff on top of it. I think that piece of it for me, if I was looking at resumes, would set you apart from everybody else. So
and also like explaining it as effectively as possible on your resume. Like my first resume just completely sucked. I mean, my kid could have wrote that resume, and and then I got with a organization like Hire Heroes USA. They actually gave me, like, they wrote the bones of my resume. Of course, I had to, rewrite it to kind of tailor it to myself. There may or may not have been some chat GPT thrown in there somewhere with the resume, but now I think it's effective enough where it got me in the door with this Navy position I'm working in now. But I think having a second set, even third set of eyes on the resume will work wonders for folks who are trying to get their foot in the door. Because last time I sent it over to another, I think it was a major retired who was hiring at his law firm. They were looking for a law office manager, and I sent him my resume early on. And he's like, dude, you need to convert this military speak into civilian speak. I mean, it looks good. You have the qualifications, but if you sent this over to somebody who doesn't speak the language, they're not going to know what the hell you're talking about. So that kind of took me back to the drawing board, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to convert this stuff into something that somebody can easily read, right? So I think that speaks volumes if you know how to transition that resume and make it into civilian speak.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think, the more the better. The more input you can get, the more eyes on, because they might catch something that you don't catch, or they, and even if you don't, you don't disagree, or you disagree, or you decide not to follow their advice, right? It's just the more perspective, the more experience you can get on anything, really, the better. I mean, really, it's another resource that you can use that they're offering. So why not get their opinion on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of experience, I want to ask you two things. One thing that you touched on just lightly in the beginning about putting in your leave, and we discussed it off camera, but the process of that, and then also going into just another topic, how that would align with the same kind of issues and stumbling blocks you hit trying to gather your medical stuff for your VA.
Yeah, so I think I went to a retirement briefing back in like July, and so this is like the first time they kind of touch on like a little bit of like what your entitlements are, right? Because you just hear like very broad, like, oh, you get permissive TDY plus your terminal leave. You're like, okay, well, like what does that mean? What is this magical permissive TDY thing? And so they kind of touch on it a little bit, and I took notes, and they gave me like a very small handout with like the slides, like 3 inches by 2 inches. So then it goes, that's pretty much the only input you get. So it's like, it's almost like a guessing game. So, it's just, typical leave, kind of calculation. Okay, how much am I going to have through the end of this month? And then I'm going to tack on 10 days of this, my, TAA. And then you get 10 days of ISAA, I think. And so that's like your 20 days, but there's different rules and stuff, right? So it's like, you don't have to take them consecutively, but then you have to have like a work day in between. And so then I'm like, so basically I just took my end day, right? I haven't taken any leave. I didn't get any carryover on my leave. So it's like, so I had the 60 carryover plus, since I'm going to be getting out at the end of the March, that's another, 15 days all occurs. That's 75. So then 75 plus my 10 plus my other 10. And so just, going on calendarcalculator.com or something, figuring out what my day was going to be. I'm like, all right, well, this is what I'm going to go with. 10 days starting here, 10 days, and send them up. And I actually got a little pushback from one of my supervisors. He didn't even know what I was talking about because he hasn't retired yet, ever, obviously. So he's like, well, this thing says it's for involuntary separation. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So then I had to go get the regulation and get the, this is what it, because, and so that was just another holdup. But, eventually got everything signed, got everything submit to my, my HR shop who had to submit it, who submitted it to my installation transition office or whatever to actually give me like a date to like do my 30-day briefing where you got to make the election on your, the survivor benefit thing. And then, so anyway, so luckily the one thing they do give you at the retirement briefing is really helpful is a checklist, right? And it's like, okay, 6 months out, look at these things, 4 months out, look at this. So I've been following that to a T, so I've got everything there. I've got all my leave forms approved. My HR, office is tracking. So yeah, the 27th, it's not ideal because it's that 1 week between Christmas and New Year. So who knows how hard that's going to be to actually get someone to sign and stamp all my clearing papers and stuff. So it might not happen. I might be closed or something, but on paper, the 27th is my last official day where I have to put the uniform on. And then the medical records thing, right? So it's like, I've been tracking this for like years. I'm like, okay, this is going to be, and I know what I got to do. I could submit my BDD as early as October 5th. I think I slacked a little bit, but it was like early September. I thought like, maybe they give them like a month, maybe less. Submit my, request for records through my local office, which is Fort Belvoir, thinking like, that's all you got to do. And then you get a stack of stuff and just not hearing much from them at all. So like followed up with them at probably 3 or 4 weeks and they're like, oh, we're still working on it. Followed up again. So I ended up taking them like over 2 months to get my medical records. So then it's like, yeah, exactly. So then it's like, oh, well, I've already. So then it's more I'm looking at like the other backstop, which is like, okay, you got to get in 100, or I'm sorry, you got to get in 90 days before. So, I mean, I still have until I think like December 31st or 1 January. But of course, they blame everything on Genesis, right? This new program they shifted to over the spring and summer. So, but yeah, so, I mean, I could have requested them earlier. I still feel fine about it, but so working through that, and then at that point, actually getting referrals for VSOs that I've been collecting probably for the last 9 months, and then actually reaching out to them, and some of them aren't taking on new clients. Some of them are kind of precluded now because they've moved on to different positions in the government, so they can't help people on that. I got a referral for one person. That another colleague told me that's my VSO, not impressed, do not go with them. Wow. Yeah. I got a referral for that person, so that was obviously nix that one. And then so finally I got like a referral, talked to the person, they were good. They had the capacity, had a good referral, had a good outcome for this, for my other colleague that had worked through them. So got a VSO lined up. He's got all my records. We've already got a follow-up appointment scheduled, I think, around the middle of December. So I think I'm still on track to get my BDD in, but, you can never start too early. But, I mean, at the same time, it's medical ambulance and stuff will still pop up. So, it's, I was trying to get everything cleared out before I actually requested the medical records. But, yeah. So that's another, you can never be too prepared or start too early. But, yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, that BDD process is can be a beast too. So I went through my network, folks who have already, started the whole transition process, and the majority of them, I went through a certain one over at the DAV office, and the majority of them were like, only use this person, because I've heard stories where I've used this other person and it was a terrible experience. So definitely like reach out to the network too and figure out who used what and who used where, because that could be the determining factor whether you get, something or nothing on the back end with the VA claim, right? Do they actually give a crap about what they're doing? Or are they just plugging stuff in there just to get through the day? So hopefully I made the right choice, but I've got good gouge on who to go with. Specifically was through the DAV right here locally in San Diego. There are some horror stories out there, that I've heard about. But yeah, no, I think you made the right choice, man, going through, talking to folks and figure out who to go through and how to maneuver that thing, because it definitely can be a maze, especially the whole BDD thing and trying to get your medical records in time. I made it a point to put it on my calendar. I think it was like 180 days out, like 180 days to 90 days where, that's that sweet time where you can put your BDD in. That 180 day date, I put it on my calendar and I was there that same day. I'm like, hey, look, I'm here to put my BDD in here. I didn't want to wait any longer. I just knew I wanted to get it done and over with. So if I have any questions, we have time to kind of maneuver through all those things, because if it comes down too late to it and I'm at like the 90-day mark, then I have to wait after I got out to do any kind of changes on the BDD or the VA claim process. At least that's what I was told. So I didn't want to wait any longer. I'd like to get it in as soon as possible.
Well, I mean, that 90-day mark is crucial, because if you don't get in by then you go to the back of the line with everybody else. And it's like you kind of missed a very prime opportunity that kind of puts you in the front of the line. So it's it's like a no fail, or you're going to be feeling a lot of pain. At least at first. I mean, obviously they'll go back and backdate everything and you get back pay, if your claim's approved and everything, but that's kind of like the hard line, can't fail, got to get that in. But yeah, I don't think you can have too many references, referrals, resources, right? Because you don't know the circumstances. They might not work out. They might not be doing it anymore. They might be overloaded. I mean, I looked, the first people I called was, I think, the state of Virginia VA office, because they're the ones that gave the brief at the retirement office. And they're like, yeah, come contact us. So I contacted them first, and they're just like, yeah, we can't take any more people on. It's like, okay, just like, no, like, sorry, like, you can, that was a Fort Bill, like, you can call around and look for other appointments. So it's like, I'm looking around and they're all filled up too. So I'm like, well, I guess the Virginia Department of Veteran Affairs isn't a great opportunity to pursue right now. So then I started looking at other organizations and getting referrals from other people. So yeah, because you don't know this, when push comes to shove, you don't know, if you can rely on them or not. So yeah, just get as many recommendations as you can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, do a ton of research and a ton of homework. And I guess there's two hard dates, and correct me if I'm wrong, there might be a third or a fourth, but the two like really, really hard dates where you got to be not only tenacious as hell, but you have to be really, really persistent with is like the 2-year mark for starting your retirement and that BDD process. There may be another one I can't think of right now, but those two for sure, like if you show up the day before the 180 days and they tell you like you have to wait till tomorrow, like at least and then go back tomorrow, but you got to be really tenacious with those two specific things for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do. Yeah. I mean, you have a little window, right? You've got between 180 to 90 to actually get it in. So, but again, it's just, whatever circumstances are kind of dictating what you can do at that time. Another thing I did notice that process is like, so I thought it was like, and I forgot the official DA or DD form you got to fill out to get your medical records, but I thought they were just going to give me everything, right? And so I was going through behavioral health records and I was like, well, this is only shown for like the last 3 years at Fort Belvoir. Like, where's everything? And so they're like, oh no, you gotta, for behavioral health, it's like a completely different animal. So I had to literally go to every providing office I've been at and have to request records for them immediately. So I don't even have those. So
that's a pain, ain't it? That's a pain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they don't tell you this.
No, they
so
don't.
It's like, okay, so I had to wait 2 months to get to find out that they weren't even going to give me everything I wanted. So it's like, well, I mean, I've got everything for the last 3 years, but I mean, I've been seeing behavioral health providers for probably the last decade, maybe 11, 12 years. So it's like, they've got records of the encounters, but they might not have all the notes. So it's like, I'm going back to each individual office now.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah. It's not, it's not a fun
any
process.
exterior clinics, any like hospitals you might have gone to like civilian side, they don't automatically report that stuff to the military side. So I had to go to like Sharp Medical. I had to go to, all these, Balboa Hospital who doesn't, report it to Miramar, back when I was in, they don't really talk to each other. So you have to go to these other outlying sources to go retrieve your medical records. And that was one thing. I mean, starting early on with the BDD process, that was great because they explained to me, hey, look, do you have all your stuff? I thought I did. This is, you only have Genesis, Alta, whatever it is. You need to go retrieve all these other medical records. I'm like, shoot. So I was happy that I started early on because now I had time to go to these other, hospitals, which don't exactly give it to you in the same day, right? You request it and then they give you a call, hey, come pick it up like 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, because they have to retrieve all that stuff. So it's great that you started early on and you found that out. Anybody out there listening, start off early and you're going to have to go seek this stuff out on the back end. So hopefully you start off early.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. That's insane. Well, I tell you what, we've hit the 30-minute mark, and I think we're good. I think we can wrap. We can always catch back up again in a week or 2 or 3. But thank you again for coming back on, Justin. It's really nice to have you. You've opened our eyes. I'm sure Victor's had some aha moments, and I've had a few myself. And hopefully some people out there in the audience will have some aha moments listening to this, because it's always really good to get on the ground information. But yeah, thank you again for joining us on here, and hope this wasn't too awkward. And I think it went well. So, and then
it was good seeing you again.
For everybody else out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's good to see a familiar face.
And you're welcome to come back on anytime you want, man. Anytime you want to come on and give some details or give some updates. But I'll be reaching back out to you in the near future.
All right, sounds good.
But for everybody else out there, be sure to check us out on Reads Across America Radio. They've been gracious enough to give us a spot on Wednesday evenings at 11 p.m. So you can check us out there. And of course, across all the different podcasts, platforms, and social medias, you can look for us and find us out there. And thank you for listening. And thank you for being a part of the show. And we'll talk to you later.